Welcome. It's a fine day for a conversation. This is Pep Talk, and I'm Tim Padgett. On Pep Talk, we discuss the fine art of business, those things that are intangibles, those things such as leadership, creativity, bravery, communication, collaboration. Today with me is Shaun Lovick. Shaun is the president of NVISIA, and it's a technology company that's on the cutting edge. You say that all the time, but I think that in truth you are.
Yeah.
And you're delivering some new technologies and some new services that are not always the easiest to adapt within your clients. And I think delivering those types of services becomes an art form in and of itself. I know from an educational standpoint, I'm not the biggest technology guy, but I understand how it works if someone else can make it work. So tell us a little bit about how you got here, though, because I think everyone's got a different story of a travel that they've taken.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. The company, a weird story. So my son is just starting out at Naperville North, freshman, and he's taking a programming class, his own choice. I did not push him into this. But he came home last night, and he was so excited he had to show me how it worked. He's like, watch this, Dad, I made it work. And he popped up a little screen, he typed your name, and it said, hello, Dad. And he was so excited. And what's funny, at a very simple sense, that's what our guys like to do, right? They like to create something. And they're craftsmen. They want to be very good at their craft. And so the idea of taking an idea that our clients have, using new technology and creating something that really works, that's what they really get motivated by, right? We joke around with the consulting side is basically the accounting of our work, right? What we really like to do is build things, right? And build things that'll last and that use new technology appropriately, right? And so there's a big learning curve and kind of spirit behind that we try to maintain.
So we do have a lot of innovations. We were talking before the show about how things had been a little bit stagnant. People were using the same tools, maybe doing things the same way, but you said there's now an advent of a new generation of things. Give us the 30-second version of that.
Sure, and maybe a different view on it is a lot of new technologies coming up. What's interesting, like you said, for a couple years it was fairly quiet. Now it's really taken off. And what's interesting is that it's not one. So when the internet first came out, there was a certain technology, and there's pieces of it. Now they're across the board. You look at things like mobile, and not just mobile apps you download from the App Store, different ways of doing that. Different way of using lightweight software. Data is becoming a really big issue. There's a lot. And so for us, we find that exciting, because our guys, that's what gets them motivated, right? And I think we'll talk training in a little bit. Training for us is making opportunities. We don't tell the guys, learn this. They tell us, this is what's coming and this is why it's interesting. We say, that's a great point, how can we help you learn it? And then they learn it. So it's very much a different approach. We're not trying to say we're the smartest, guys do what we say. It's a flip. It's actually, guys tell us what you're seeing, what you're learning, and then we help them learn that and adapt it to our clients.
Yeah, and they have to take initiative because there are a lot of ways to skin a cat, as they say. It's similar in our business where you could use a tool like Photoshop, 6 different ways to retouch a photo, and they'll all look great, but no one will even know how it was done. Same with coding. That can be very specialized too. Even
worse, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things we enjoy about our company is we have these discussions, and there's no clear winner. There's not going to be a perfect fit for everything. One of the things that we don't struggle with, that we embrace, I guess more than anything else, is the idea that we're not going to deliver every piece of software the exact same way. Very much following agile methodologies, but even another step. We have fundamental design and architectural principles we have to follow, and that's what we hold our teams accountable for. Whether they use jQuery or a different JavaScript framework, that's up to them and the client, and they will figure it out together. But we give them that freedom, right? And we make sure we understand the risks involved. But the idea is staying kind of with the core of what you need to build. Things are going to come in, but the core doesn't change. And I think we try to give our people a lot of freedom in that area.
So one of our intangibles we talk about is bravery.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And a lot of people have different risk tolerances, let's call them.
Yep.
So given the responsibility to be in charge or to be responsible, how does that work in your company, and how do you bear fruit from it?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because our clients will be across the board. We'll have clients that are, and we do a lot of healthcare work. Very much it's got to work, right? You can't have hospital system go down or a payer system go down. Less risk tolerance. So how do we keep those core principles while maybe not doing the latest technologies? Or how do we introduce the new technologies in pieces so that they can adapt them, right? One of our goals is our clients own the solution at the end, right? We want to help them. We're not in this business to do maintenance, and stay around forever. We want to help them own it. So how do we introduce that to them? We have other clients that are completely leading edge. We have one right now, speaking of brave, the CIO is incredibly brave. And he feels that in order for him to come up with a market differentiator, it's all new technologies. It's using new programming languages, it's across the board, and it's going very well. But his risk profile is much higher than some of our other ones. So that goes into, that's why we don't feel we can say, here's the standard. Here's our principles. The standard for you is different than the standard for you. And our guys are smart enough to kind of make that adaptation.
And not everything goes right.
Oh, no.
And so how do you deal with that in your environment? Because you can detect it early, or you can find it out later, which is a little more expensive to find out.
You got it. Yeah, and just this morning, I was working with a client on that. And it really comes down to, we have this, again, we got these fundamental beliefs, right, that are pretty strong within the company. We've been here for 25 years. The idea is we're doing it with the client. So the idea is this morning we had a testing issue come up. Rather than saying, oh, that's horrible, you tested late, let's figure it out, what happened? And when you go in with that attitude of what happened, how can we fix that, a lot of the barriers come down pretty quick, and then you're just solving the problem. We always focus, we break it up. Whenever there's a fire drill or triage, solve the problem first, right? Solve the problem first, figure out what to do, worry about messaging and those sort of things later. But really, let's solve the problem first and understand it. And that's that attitude of being helpful, honest, transparent. We try to push that as much as we can. And I think that helps a lot.
And you were recently recognized as a best place to work in Chicago. Not an easy thing to do. There's a lot of them out there who are starting to get this cultural aspect and the power of it. So what would you say is one of the most interesting cultural things that you guys have done that meant the most to the rest of the team?
Yeah, I think an interesting way, and this goes to kind of another quick story, is we have this idea of a learning spirit. So when people join us, I had an interview yesterday with someone who was looking to join us, and I asked him, how do you learn? Right? And I've said, I'm not going to drill you on agile methodologies or this. How do you learn? Right? How do you want, and are you interested in that? Right? Loaded question, of course, they'll say yes, but how? And that comes all the way down from the person who founded the company. So one of the things he did when he took a step back from running day-to-day operations, he went back to school. And he learned how to build things using CNC machines, because it's an architectural thing. He went back to school and learned that because he always wants to learn. And so I think that's part of it. The way we try to encourage that is not by having strict training plans. We have those too, right? And we're working more to try to develop more and more of those. But we also make available a tool to everyone in the company that just has a bunch of training available to it. You pick what you want. If you want to learn how to use Photoshop, it's really not applicable to what we do, to what you do, but go ahead. You're learning. We don't learn whatever you want, right? Learn how to play cribbage. I don't, do what it is. What's funny is they will gravitate towards learning things around technology because that's what they enjoy. So again, it's this idea of not controlling them as much and giving them some freedom, and it's paid off, right? It's because we hire people that have that same spirit.
And it sounds as if they understand the why.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
They understand the why, and they're doing it because they enjoy the why. Yeah. Right? That's what's interesting. It's not because, this is going to sound weird, you may have to edit this out later, but it's not because they look at it and say, boy, can we make a lot of money off this. That's not their viewpoint at all. Their viewpoint is, like my son, I can write something really cool with this. Right? I can build something really neat, and oh, by the way, yeah, that helps. Right? But so it's a different mindset, and I think when we stay to that mindset, you really come up with great solutions.
And it sounds as if you're stimulating the passion.
Yeah. That's
the key thing around here as well.
Yeah, and it doesn't take much.
Yeah.
It really doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
A lot of it is...
it's inherent.
You get it. You get it. A lot of it is just not holding them down almost, and not trying to say, I started at a large consulting company that's much more, here's how we deliver projects, and they have to because they scale. That's not our model, right? Our model is more around small teams that work together to solve a solution. Teams range from 2 to 20, right? It's different. The way we behave on 2 versus 20 is different. There's more formality around 20. But we're going to adapt it. Stay true to our core principles and adapt it based on what we need to build.
Is there any one thing you can share with us that's on the horizon that we don't see yet as the common folk?
On technology?
Yeah.
The one, and again, I'm not as deep in this anymore, but just based on history of what I see, I think the idea of mobile and how it's going to be implemented is going to be very interesting. You look at the App Store, you look at Google Play, Google Store, those sort of things. Maintaining those different versions and stuff gets difficult. It has been forever. There's been solutions, remember Castanet, a bunch of them before then. The new technologies around HTML5, responsive design, those are getting very interesting because you're changing the distribution mechanism.
Okay.
So I don't think one's going to replace it. I don't think that's going to happen at all. But I think there's going to be other options available for clients, and you're starting to see some very interesting solutions around that. So I think that's one we're keeping an eye on. But again, what's interesting is we're seeing them at the very top, how people view it on a mobile device, all the way down to machine learning and data. And so it's kind of fun to see all the different areas and the changes that are happening there.
Real good. Well, thanks for being my guest.
No, thank you. This has been great.
I appreciate it. And if someone wanted to get in contact with you, how would they do that?
Website is www.NVISIA. So NVISIA is NVISIA.com.
Very good. Thanks, Shaun.
Thanks.